So this video is going to be on explaining the different labs for the 5-minute code for lab 3. So we have a whole series of different labs, as you can see here. They should not take you that particularly long to do it all. Once we get in the groove, there's going to be some repetitious components that we're going to be looking at. So let's take a look at the first one. So in the first step, we're looking to have a prompt where a user is going to enter two whole numbers. We're going to include a print statement for a separator line, meaning this particular line right there. And in step number 2, we're going to basically create a nice print statement so the output looks very nice and it's going to be formatted. So if we take a look at the code, the starter code that I got here, so once again I'm utilizing the concept of functions, so don't do anything in that particular area. We're going to be starting our coding in this particular function right underneath it. Remember, tabs are important. So what I have here is just a simple introduction. We have some directions of what we're going to do, and this is going to be where our step 1 is going to be. So create code to prompt the user to enter two whole numbers, and that code is going to look something along the lines like this. So let's type this out here. Remember, tabs are important here. So we're going to prompt the user to enter a whole number, and if you remember that what we need to do is we're going to make sure that this is a type int. So our value num1 as well as num2 is going to be an integer value because by default it's going to save it as a string. And then once we get the information, step number 2 is to make sure that we have a nice print statement. So once again, I'm utilizing an f string to display what num1 and num2 is, and then basically the sum of num1 and num2. So let's go ahead and run the code. All right, I'm going to move this to the other side so we're able to see what's going on here. So right now it's saying enter your name. So here are the directions. The system will prompt you for two numbers. Enter a whole number, so we'll do 8 and 9. The sum of the numbers is 17, and again this syntax is corresponding to this particular line. Now there are basically a whole bunch of other methods that we're able to implement as well, and depending on how things are organized and how you want to interpret the code, let me show you something else here in terms of an alternate method. So this alternate method that I have over here, what we're doing is we're adding num1 and num2 to a new variable called total, and from there we're taking total and utilizing a different print statement, and we'll get the same result. So instead of basically putting this, we're just replacing that with a total here. So once again, when I run the code, we'll do 8 and 9 again, and we'll just basically get similar output. But you notice that down below here we have, I just formatted it slightly differently on that part. All right, so that's basically lab 3b, 5-minute code lab 3b. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the next one here. So next one is going to be something similar, but this time what we're going to do is we're going to subtract the numbers here. So same thing, the user is going to get prompted to enter two numbers, and then what we'll do is modify the code to subtract those two particular numbers. And so we'll basically copy and paste the same code. So here's step number 1, and we'll just copy and paste here. So we got our inputs and then our output here. We'll just do something very simple. for the output statement, and this will be just a simple printf num1 minus num2 is equal num1 minus num2. So let's go ahead and run the code. Let me move this over here, and then type my name, enter a whole number. So we'll do 10, and then we'll do 4. So once again, this corresponds to that particular line. Now the question is, what happens if we run this code again and we enter a negative number for our first number? And well, let's take a look. So I'm going to clear the screen over here. We're going to run it. So if you get this, this happens because it's trying to run, and it basically kind of lost its place in terms of running the code. So what you're going to do when you have this particular arrows over here, to get out of this area, just type in exit, open and close paren. So we're back to this, and not sure if the system recognizes the code. So here, and so this time let's go ahead and run the code here, and let's say that we're gonna do negative 22, enter another number, we'll subtract 10 from that, and well, it did what it's supposed to do. So if you notice, 22 minus 10 is equal to 32, exactly what it's supposed to do in terms of that. So it handles both positive and negative numbers very well without an issue. All right, so let's get to the next code. All right, so this one's going to be multiplication. So same thing, step 1, prompt the user to enter 2 whole numbers. And step number 2, we're going to format it to have a nice output. And once again, same kind of template that I have, but this time what we'll do for this one here, we'll prompt the user. So we'll just add the code here. Step number 2, we'll do the multiplication, and all it is just using the correct syntax. So now we have num1 times num2 is equal to num1 times num2. And let's go ahead and run this particular code. Let's move this guy over here. What's your name? Mark. So do 4 and 5. There we go. Pretty easy. All right, now time for the fun stuff. So now we did the addition, subtraction, multiplication. Now let's take a look at what happens with division.